Hi, everyone. My name is Sean. I'm the CEO of Fortmatic and recently launched Magic. Before Fortmatic, I worked at Docker as a product lead responsible for developer experiences of desktop products used by millions of developers. Our new product, Magic, is a developer SDK that let users access dApps using ways they're familiar with, like with Magic links on Medium and Slack, without needing browser extensions. We're extremely excited to be building on top of Flow. But before I get into the details, I'd like to share why blockchains like Flow is very significant to the next generation of internet infrastructure as well. So over the last 40 years, the internet has gone through several major transformations. Every one of them follows a similar shift in paradigm from closed, more costly, centralized systems to open, more efficient, decentralized systems. This began with the evolution from internetworking to World Wide Web, and more recently from private cloud to public cloud over decades. And today we're on the cusp of the next paradigm shift, and the need for it has never been greater. Historically, there are two forces that accelerate the end of one paradigm and the beginning of the next. The first one is democratization. Moving from siloed centralized platforms to decentralized platforms that are distributed, highly scalable, and owned by everyone collectively. The other force is automation, enabling significant reductions in cost and complexity that make brand new business models possible. And over the past 20 years, we have experienced a massive proliferation of new internet platforms that provide developers with essential services to rapidly develop applications. Today, developers can easily access services for compute, data storage, payment, and identity in ways that previous generation of developers could not. And this is the good news. But the bad news is what happened as a result. The overly centralized nature of these platforms has introduced too big to fail level of risks for developers, businesses, and users alike. Like a teetering Jenga tower, if the wrong piece falls, the entire application stack, or worse, the business, may completely collapse. The millions of developers, businesses, and users that heavily depend on these platforms are sadly much more vulnerable than they realize. The number of threats are immeasurable. A company could go out of business, get hacked, restrict availability, unfairly increase pricing, abusing power resulting from their platform login status. And if that's not enough, many companies face direct competition from the very platforms in which they rely upon. If all of this sounds familiar, it's because it happens every day. The arrival of crypto networks or blockchains, such as Flow, signals the beginning of the end of closed platform era. These distributed computer networks use consensus mechanisms, such as blockchain, to store state, to compute, and ensure availability. In modern blockchains such as Flow, developers' software code is deployed via smart contracts, almost like permanent Lambda functions, where developers now have 100% confidence that a given line of code can serve as a trusted building block in perpetuity. The decentralized nature of these crypto networks also ensures that software functions are always available, even if the creator goes out of business. In addition, developers have far greater assurances that software or platforms running on crypto networks will perform as advertised. The openness, transparency by default, and continuity of crypto networks raise the level of accountability and honesty. For blockchains like Flow, developers can not only safely depend on and trust the platforms and data that are on the network, they can all reduce the cost and complexity of application development as well, while guaranteeing globally available ACID-compliant data store from achieving scalability without sharding. Today, developers can communicate with every one of these functions using standardized interfaces without having to run any servers. Yeah, the exciting part is, the open and decentralized nature of crypto networks also allow users' identity to be portable and self-sovereign, instead of having to trust centralized providers such as Facebook. For once in the history of the internet, developers can now easily leverage one piece of technology to implement all functionalities across identity, finance, and infrastructure, enabling unforeseeable new business models. A little bit about Magic. It's super simple SDK, which you can add a Magic Link authentication experience to your application. And it includes a blockchain key pair by default. So a lot of people say it's a great way as a growth hack for the blockchain. What we are actually working on closely with Flow is a way to integrate Flow as a Magic extension. So here you can see you can add a Flow extension, and using Flow's client library, the FCL interface, without having to learn a new way to interact with the blockchain. So it's really, really easy for existing Flow developers to get started, and also be able to use the Cadence smart contract language. Also what's really cool is that Flow enables us to do smart contract accounts, because that's how Flow's account is constructed. So we could actually rotate private keys or add multi-signature, all in a very scalable and performant way, and also improve on application security.